wasn't a tall man. You know what I mean? Wasn't big, nothing. But to me, he looked like, that wasn't the one to fuck with.
Welcome back to Fame Radar, where fame meets the facts and nothing stays hidden. Biggie's alleged killer has finally stepped forward, and this time, it happened in open court.
Somebody might try to get me, but I'm just gonna make it hard as F.
With cameras flashing and attorneys stunned, he stood up and made a chilling confession. He even issued an apology, but what shocked the room most was his claim that he was ordered to do it. Someone else allegedly pulled the strings. Before diving into that bombshell, we need to rewind to Biggie's final 48 hours because what he said and did now connects directly to this latest revelation. On March 5th, 1997, in San Francisco, Biggie sat down with JV and Elvis on 107.7's Doghouse radio show. He was joking, relaxed, but clearly tired. Then he suddenly made an eerie comment, one that caught the room off guard. He brushed it off with a smile, but behind it was clear exhaustion and heavy tension. Biggie had just wrapped his Life After Death album and had been bouncing between coasts for promotion. Mentally and emotionally, he was drained. Two major blows had shaken him: the death of Tupac Shakur in a drive-by and the fear that he might be next. He said as much in that same interview, not as a joke, but as a serious concern. 3 days later, on March 8th, Biggie showed up at the Soul Train Music Awards in LA. Eyewitnesses say he was in good spirits and believed the East Coast-West Coast beef might finally be calming down. But what followed would change everything. In another interview, Biggie made it clear. He was done with the drama. He wanted peace. But not everyone shared that vision. On the night of March 8th, a party was thrown at the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles, hosted by Vibe magazine. By early March 9th, the building was packed with celebrities, producers, and security personnel. Around 12:30 a.m., the fire marshal shut it down due to overcrowding. Outside, things moved quickly. Puff Daddy's SUV led the group. Biggie followed right behind in a green Chevy Suburban with Lil Cease, G-Money, and security guard D-Rock. Then, silence shattered by gunfire. Lil Cease later gave a graphic breakdown of what happened. Everyone ducked and tried to escape, but Biggie's door wouldn't open. He'd been shot 4 times, one bullet piercing his heart. When they arrived at the hospital, security guard Gene Deal pulled Biggie from the SUV and screamed to Puff, "He's dead." But no one wanted to accept it. The loss was devastating. Christopher Wallace, father, artist, cultural icon, was gone. Then came the investigation. A special task force was created, led by former LAPD detective Greg Kading. After years of silence, red tape, and legal battles, Kading confirmed something that shocked everyone. There were names, witnesses, and one immunity deal that changed everything. According to former LAPD detective Greg Kading, a man named Wardell Poochie Faust, an alleged Bloods-affiliated hitman tied to Suge Knight's crew, was the one who pulled the trigger on Biggie. Poochie had a history of violent crimes and was linked to several other murders. But the real shock wasn't about him. It was who helped make it happen. Kading revealed that Suge Knight's girlfriend at the time, the intermediary in the alleged hit, had been granted full immunity in exchange for key information. That immunity deal had never been made public, not until Kading's post-retirement interview. And here's the kicker. It all led nowhere. Kading said Suge never left a paper trail, never directly incriminated himself. The immunity deal? Useless in court. But in a recent courtroom twist, everything changed. During a surprise hearing that had reporters scrambling, a man with direct involvement in the shooting came forward. He wasn't a witness. He was one of the planners. In court, he uttered 5 words that stunned the room. "I'm sorry. I killed Biggie." He gave details that only someone at the scene would know, describing the car, the timing, the weapon, and even Lil Cease yelling at women from the window just before the shots rang out. He claimed the hit wasn't about East Coast versus West Coast, it was personal, a statement. And Biggie? Just collateral damage. This forced investigators to revisit the entire case. including the LAPD's botched handling of the crime scene. And that brought new light to a chilling claim made by Biggie's own circle. Valletta Wallace, Biggie's mother, spent millions in pursuit of justice. She launched a lawsuit against the LAPD, alleging a cover-up and claiming the department had deep connections to Suge Knight and death row records. According to court documents, the case wasn't dismissed for lack of evidence. It was dismissed because the LAPD refused to settle. Emotionally and financially drained, Valletta had no choice but to step back. But she didn't give up. Years later, she met with former detective Greg Kading, the man who reopened the case. Kading said she was gracious and calm, driven not by revenge, but by the need for truth. And after the courtroom confession, she may finally be closer to it. As for Biggie's own mindset before his death, there's a forgotten radio interview that sheds light. The final one he ever gave. In it, he hinted that he felt watched, like something was closing in. And he dropped a subtle warning, one that only now feels prophetic. He sensed danger. He just didn't know how close it was. And what makes this tragedy even more painful? The man who confessed wasn't acting alone. According to recent developments, at least 2 others were involved and remain free. That takes us into the next layer, the pay-for-hit conspiracy. There's a money trail, one that investigators believe leads straight to secret conversations Suge Knight had while behind bars. Tapes exist, phone calls that the public has never heard. And inside those recordings may lie the blueprint to Biggie's assassination. Because on the streets, there's always been one rule. If you move on someone, make sure the money's clean and nobody talks. But when Christopher Wallace was gunned down in Los Angeles, that silence didn't hold. It fractured. And now, the truth is spilling out. What unraveled after Biggie's murder revealed something far more calculated than a random drive-by or coastal beef. This wasn't about gang rivalry. It wasn't just about Suge Knight. This was about business, blood money, a hit ordered with precision, clean, silent, and paid in full. The trail begins with a phone call made from prison shortly after Biggie was killed on March 9, 1997. Suge Knight was behind bars for a probation violation, but prison phones never stay quiet. He wasn't only calling attorneys, and he was speaking to people on the outside with power and reach. One of those people? Wardell Pucci, Faust, the alleged hitman named by former LAPD detective Greg Kading. Witnesses later confirmed Suge had relayed messages to Pucci through his girlfriend, the same woman granted full immunity by prosecutors. Kading confirmed she served as the middle link in the plot. The FBI even flagged a suspicious bank transfer made the day after Biggie's death. Not under Suge's name, but tied to someone in his inner circle. No fingerprints needed when you've got motive and a money trail. In Suge's view, Biggie's death was a message. Proof that the game didn't end with Tupac's murder. And Suge? He didn't exactly stay quiet. Though he never directly confessed, prison interviews captured Suge speaking in coded language, hinting at revenge, power, and control. In one leaked deposition, when asked if he knew who killed Biggie, Suge responded, "Maybe I do, maybe I don't. Ask Puff." That pointed response added more heat. But Sean Diddy Combs, formerly Puff Daddy, has always denied any involvement, insisting he was just another victim of the tragedy. Insiders have revealed a far more complex story than what the public was told. Gene Deal, a former security guard who was with Puff Daddy and Biggie the night of the murder, painted a darker picture. According to Deal, Puff was warned about serious threats in Los Angeles, and Biggie never even wanted to go to California for the Soul Train Awards. Deal said Puff insisted they attend. That wasn't just grief, he saw later. It was trauma and possibly guilt. After Biggie's death, Puff allegedly began cutting off people close to the event. Emotionally and financially, he reportedly stopped working with security guards who cooperated with police. So what really happened inside that SUV? Lil Cease, who was in the car with Biggie, recalled it being a normal LA night. Girls on the sidewalk, music bumping, and then bullets. No warning. just silence and shock. When they looked over, Biggie wasn't moving. Gene Deal later told a courtroom something that shattered the tough image surrounding Biggie's final moments. "He pissed on himself," he said. That single line broke the illusion that this was just another part of the street life. This wasn't a beef. This was a murder-for-hire operation. Clean, brutal, and planned. And now, 27 years later, one of the men involved has stepped forward. Why confess now? According to law enforcement, the man had simply grown tired of running. He filed for a plea deal, offering his full cooperation in exchange for immunity from unrelated charges. Investigators confirmed his role in Biggie's murder through a signed affidavit, a document that may finally blow the lid off one of hip-hop's darkest chapters. He saw it coming. According to Michelle, Biggie specifically requested extra security around the SUV before leaving that party. He was told everything was fine, but the truth? He wasn't reassured. He was overruled. And here's something most don't mention. Biggie had changed hotels. He was originally staying at the Four Seasons, but was moved to the Beverly Hills Hotel just 2 days before his murder. Officially, it was blamed on a booking issue. But insiders now claim the switch came after Biggie received a threatening phone call. An unnamed member of his crew said Biggie picked up the phone, nodded without speaking, then immediately asked to relocate. That number was never traced, it was unlisted, and the call was never investigated. But that wasn't the only warning sign. Gene Deal, Puffy's former security guard, later revealed a haunting detail. In a separate interview, he recalled leaving the party that night and scanning every rooftop, convinced someone was watching. He didn't know who, but he knew something was wrong. And Gene's instincts were dead on. To this day, he remains shaken, not just by what happened, but by how little was done afterward. He said, "It's hard to come back from that." And maybe he never really did. So what does this all mean? Biggie knew. He voiced fear in his final interviews. He made quiet moves behind the scenes to protect his name, his family, and his music. And when he died, those final songs, private deals, and secret talks vanished too. This wasn't just a hit, it was a silencing. And it matters now more than ever because history twists when truth stays buried. But Biggie left us the map. Every lyric, every interview, every look behind the curtain. He was trying to warn the world. Christopher Wallace may not have predicted the exact night or street, but he knew the walls were closing in. And nearly 30 years later, the world is finally listening. Not because law enforcement uncovered the truth, not because the industry demanded answers, but because his mother never stopped fighting. And maybe, just maybe, now he can finally rest. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, hit that like button, subscribe, and check out one of the videos on screen for more deep dives like this.